You feel a friend go quiet through a screen before they type a single word. You sense the exact moment a room shifts before anyone says why. That kind of noticing has always felt less like a choice and more like a second sense you never asked for. What almost nobody tells you is that this same gift is exactly what certain people learn to look for. Sensitivity gets treated like a soft word. Too emotional, too much, too easily hurt. But underneath that label is something far more specific and far more real. Researchers who study temperament describe a trait called sensory processing sensitivity, found in roughly 15 to 20% of people. It isn't a flaw in the design, it's a nervous system built to process emotional and sensory information more deeply than most, picking up on tone, timing, and tension that other people walk straight past. That depth is not imagined. When researchers studied brain activity in highly sensitive people responding to emotional images, they found stronger activation in regions tied to empathy and perspective-taking, including the insula. In plain terms, a sensitive person doesn't just notice that someone seems off. Their brain builds a small, detailed map of what off might mean and keeps working on it long after the moment has passed. In a safe relationship, this is a quiet superpower. They're the friend who remembers what you didn't say out loud, the partner who senses a bad day before you mention it. But that same radar, the one built to protect connection, can become a very specific kind of exposure once the wrong person learns how to read it. Because there's another pattern worth understanding here. One therapists often describe using the idea of narcissistic supply. Some people are wired to need a near constant stream of external validation just to feel steady inside. They don't generate their own sense of worth easily, so they look for people who will supply it again and again without needing much in return. And a highly sensitive person, someone who listens closely, forgives quickly, and reads pain before it's spoken, looks to that kind of person like an endless well. It rarely starts as anything alarming. It usually starts as the best attention you've ever received. They mirror your interests. They ask questions that make you feel unusually understood. They seem to notice the parts of you other people overlooked. For someone who has spent years feeling like their depth was inconvenient, that kind of attention can feel like finally being found. Underneath it, the brain begins tagging this person as important. Attention narrows, hope rises, trust starts building faster than judgment can catch up. But the warmth rarely stays constant. And the first time it disappears, the sensitive person usually does not blame the person who took it away. They blame themselves. A comment lands a little colder than usual. A reply takes longer than it should. Affection that once felt automatic now feels like something you have to earn back. And here is where the sensitive nervous system runs into a problem most people never see coming. Psychologists call this pattern intermittent reinforcement, and it's the same mechanism that keeps people pulling a slot machine long after the odds stop making sense. When warmth comes back unpredictably instead of reliably, the brain doesn't relax. It pays closer attention. Every return of affection starts to feel like relief, and relief to the brain can feel a lot like reward. At the same time, something is happening in the body that has nothing to do with logic. Research on social rejection has found that being excluded or coldly treated can activate some of the same neural pathways involved in physical pain. So when someone you trusted suddenly goes quiet, your body isn't overreacting. It's registering something it was built to take seriously. Picture the version of this that plays out quietly on an ordinary night. She reads a message 3 times, trying to find a version of it that isn't as cold as it feels. She types 4 different replies, deletes each one, and settles on the shortest, safest option. Then she spends the next hour replaying the entire relationship, searching for the exact place she went wrong. She never considers, not even once, that she didn't do anything wrong at all. If any part of that felt familiar, you're exactly who this channel was made for. So it might be worth hitting subscribe before we go further. This is where empathy, the very thing that makes a sensitive person remarkable, quietly gets turned against them. They see the anxious child underneath someone's coldness. They imagine the wound that must have caused this behavior. And because understanding pain has always come naturally to them, they start doing something dangerous without realizing it. They begin treating someone else's behavior as a project they're responsible for fixing. Their own needs get smaller, their own hurt gets postponed. Somewhere in that process, the question quietly shifts from why are they treating me this way to what am I doing wrong? There's often a specific sentence that does the most damage in these relationships, and it usually sounds harmless. You're too sensitive. For someone who has heard some version of that their entire life, it doesn't land as an insult. It lands as confirmation of something they already half believed. So instead of trusting what their body is telling them, they start auditing it. They wonder if they imagined the coldness. They wonder if a normal person would even be bothered by this. Slowly, their own perception stops feeling like reliable information and starts feeling like something that needs to be double-checked before it counts. That shift is not weakness. It's often a pattern learned much earlier than this relationship, in homes where a caregiver's mood set the emotional weather for everyone in the room. A child who learns to read tension early, to stay quiet when things feel unstable, to become helpful the moment someone seems upset, grows into an adult whose nervous system still treats vigilance as love. Watching someone that closely can start to feel like closeness itself. Here's the part worth sitting with. None of this happened because the sensitive person was too much, or too soft, or too easily fooled. Healing from this doesn't mean becoming harder, colder, or less feeling. That would mean losing the very thing that makes connection possible in the first place. It means learning a much smaller, much more powerful skill. Separating the ability to understand someone's pain from the obligation to absorb it. You can recognize someone's wound and still refuse to let it explain away how they treat you. You can care about where their behavior comes from and still decide, calmly, that it isn't safe to stay close to it. That isn't coldness. That's the difference between empathy and self-abandonment. And it's a difference most sensitive people were never taught. None of this means every difficult person in your life fits this pattern or that every rough patch in a relationship is a warning sign. Most people, even on their worst days, can hear that they hurt you and actually change something about how they show up next time. The pattern described here isn't about one bad week, it's about a relationship where your feelings only ever seem to matter when they're useful to the other person, and your boundaries are treated as the real offense. Somewhere tonight, someone will reread a message for the 4th time, quietly rewriting themselves to make sense of someone else's silence. And maybe the truest thing anyone could tell them is this: your sensitivity was never the weakness. The wound was being taught to offer it to people who only knew how to use it.